16 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few running backs I have as sleeper options this week. So right here, time filming this video, none of these guys have been placed on the protocol list or out right now. I know things have been rapidly changing hourly, but right now all these guys are healthy. The first guy, Duke Johnson of the Miami Dolphins. Yes, the same Duke Johnson that was on the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. So Duke Johnson here, it's been a long career for him. He's bounced around on a lot of practice squads over the last couple seasons here and also appeared in a few games for teams. But right here, Duke Johnson, he got an opportunity last week with Malcolm Brown out and Myles Gaskin not 100% coming off the protocol list. So Johnson last week versus the Jets, 22 carries, 107 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, and a catch for 20 yards. So right here, there's no way you're just going to sit a guy who put up that big production in a ball game. I know it was the New York Jets that give up the most fantasy points to running backs, but right here, Duke Johnson looked good. He was making good cutbacks. He was reading his blocks, and he was making plays here, putting up a huge fantasy day, like I mentioned, 26 fantasy points in PPR leagues. So right now, Duke Johnson's available in 90% of fantasy leagues. I know he's got a tough matchup week 16 in New Orleans, but he's a better receiver out of the backfield most likely than Myles Gaskin. And now he's going to have to get some carries, in my opinion, here, is Duke Johnson. And the Miami coordinator saying there's going to be competition, Eric Studeville said. So right here, if you need a running back with a lot of guys going down with injury or on the protocol list here, I think Duke Johnson's a decent ad this week. I know it's a tough matchup, but he could still be a sneaky sleeper play and score anywhere from 8 to 10 fantasy points minimum, in my opinion, with his receiving ability out of the backfield. The next running back's Justin Jackson of the Los Angeles Chargers. So it looks like in this ball game, we're not going to see Austin Ekeler, who on Wednesday finally got placed on the protocol list here. And Justin Jackson, right now, he did get added in a lot of fantasy leagues in the waiver wire period, and right now he's going to be the starter, but I don't think a lot of people are starting him unless you're an Austin Ekeler owner that got him. In the last few weeks here for Jackson, week 13 versus Cincinnati, 6 carries, 15 yards, 2 catches, 6 yards. Week 14 versus the Giants, 9 carries, 35 yards, a catch, 7 yards. And week 15 versus Kansas City, they split carries pretty much because Ekeler going into that ball game wasn't 100% with his ankle injury. 13 carries, 56 yards, a catch for 13 yards. So this week here, great matchup for Justin Jackson at the Houston Texans that give up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs on the season. And if Ekeler is out in this ball game, we're going to see a lot of Jackson, in my opinion. I know they got Joshua Kelly there, but he's more the shortage yard guy, which the only problem could be, obviously, he might steal a goal line touchdown here, but Jackson does everything else. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He can run between the tackles, obviously, and he could get at least 15, 18 touches in this ball game. So right here, with Ekeler out, I think he's a decent play this week, and he's got a great matchup, like I mentioned, at the Texans. And the third and final running back I have as a sleeper this week's DJ Dallas, Seattle Seahawks. And the merry-go-round the running backs this season, it's been ridiculous over there in Seattle. Every week it changes who's the lead guy is or who puts up the most fantasy points. So DJ Dallas, right now, he's available in 98% of fantasy leagues. In the last few weeks for him, week 13 versus San Francisco, he was inactive. Week 14 at Houston, 2 carries, 16 yards. And then last week, out of nowhere at the Rams, him and Rashard Penny pretty much split in that ball game. And he had a decent game, 8 carries, 41 yards, a touchdown, and 3 catches, 11 yards. So right here, week 16, not the greatest of matchups versus the Bears, who had a pretty good game versus Dalvin Cook and the Vikings in that one, holding them down to a mediocre fantasy day. But right here, this team's a mess this season is Seattle. 5-9 on the year here, Seattle. And DJ Dallas, he produced last week. And I think we're going to see a committee once again between him and Rashard Penny, where he's obviously the better receiver out of the backfield is Dallas. I think Dallas in this one could have a decent day, but if you're in deep desperation or need a sleeper option, if your team's decimated, I think DJ Dallas is a decent sleeper this week. So that's a few running backs I have as sleeper options here for week 16 of the fantasy football season.